This week has been National Autism Awareness Week, and I'm with my boyfriend Ben to talk a little bit more about it. I saw quite a few people tweeting about it, including the National Autistic Society, and because Ben is autistic, I kind of wanted to make this video and I talk to you about it as if it would be something you'd be interested in, and to talk about autism and to raise awareness of it, which is the whole point of this week. I'm not autistic, so I'm going to kind of let Ben introduce autism.
A very quick rundown is that autism is it's a developmental disorder. It kind of, as far as I think most research says, it's probably present from birth. It's not really known what causes it. It's thought to be sort of a mixture of like genetic, social, and maybe some upbringing elements, but no one really knows. But essentially, elements of autism are very varied. You might have heard the phrase autism spectrum before. There isn't really one definitive form of autism. Every autistic person is autistic in their own way. So the spectrum includes different things like some autistic people may stim, so that's a repetitive movement or a repetitive fiddling with an object.
I was going to say what Ben's currently doing.
Doing it with one of Claire's hair ties. I am terrible with any kind of like elastic band or hair tie or something that's just round.
Anything.
Yeah.
To be fair, and you flap your hands, and that's
Yeah, that's another thing.
Yeah.
Like hand movements, stuff like that. So yeah, some autistic people stim, some autistic people struggle with eye contact, or kind of with personal space. Some autistic people might struggle with like elements of social interaction, so picking up on more subtle social cues from things like body language, stuff like that is something a lot of autistic people struggle with. Again, not all autistic people, it's all on a spectrum, so there could be autistic people. There are some autistic people out there who are probably smooth, charismatic types who
Is that you, Ben?
who are extremely good at reading body language. And yeah, the main thing is I think with all that kind of separates autistic people out from non-autistic or allistic people is sort of noticing detail and thing, like the way our brains process details and information is I think it tends to get a lot more kind of passed through and filtered. It's less good at looking at the bigger picture, but much better at noticing and spotting fine details and also patterns within that picture. Yeah, like I'm quite a patterner.
Yeah, one of the cutest thing you ever said to me recently was that when we're on buses, especially like when we're down London, I'm obviously like talking all the time at you, and Ben said to me that when we're on the bus, he's like looking at the other bus numbers and adding them up. And yeah. My mind was blown because I'm really bad at adding up anyway, and I cannot see any patterns. It's to the extent of like when we have like super socks, you know, like the gel things on, and obviously like they're little bumps, like, and Ben's like sitting there kind of making patterns to go across them. Like everything you do, you're always looking for it, and I just don't have a single. That's just like not in my personality at all. It's really funny how different it is.
Yeah, the reason why I'm sort of filming this for National Autistic Week, aside from the fact that Claire is making me do it, is that
that's not true. You wanted to do it.
It has roughly lined up with my own diagnosis, which is almost a year ago today. I have actually been autistic all of my life, as I was saying earlier, but I've only been aware of this for about the last year.
Because you didn't know that you were autistic because you didn't have a diagnosis, how do you feel like, has your behaviour changed now that you know you're autistic than before?
Because I think before I was kind of inclined to doing stuff that would be typically autistic, or
which would be
stuff like fidgeting with things, not good with eye contact, etc, etc. But because I didn't know I was autistic, I was sort of also kind of made to feel like you shouldn't be doing that, it's not right for you to be doing that, that's it's rude, or it's impolite, or it's just weird, you're being strange. So in terms of like self-knowledge and like self-awareness, self-acceptance, in terms of self-acceptance, like that was, I think, very good for me, Because it'd be like, oh, I can do this stuff. It is actually normal for me to do this stuff, and it's entirely okay for me to do this stuff. I think, like, in terms of just general well-beingness, just getting the diagnosis, I think was really good for me.
I just want to cut in and say that we'll put links to, like, the NHS pages, National Autistic Society. So if any of you think that you might be autistic there, I'll put all the resources in the description of this video. When you were thinking about going to get diagnosed, you mentioned Tumblr was a really great resource for you.
Yeah.
It was quite interesting because that's not like a typical kind of traditional way of researching things. It's quite a new media form.
Yeah.
How did that impacts your decision to kind of go and do it?
Well, like, it wasn't so much research, but it was more, I was following a couple of blogs run by kind of openly autistic people and people who kind of were posting stuff about autistic advocacy and, like, their experiences as autistic people. I was reading these accounts and these experiences and, like, what these people were saying they're, like, doing, and, like, how they were really, really into special interests. I realised that was something I forgot to add earlier. A lot of autistic people have a special interest or special interests, which are various things that they're really, really into, and
what are yours, Ben?
And like really, really thoroughly kind of know about and kind of use. Like mine at the moment is the card game Magic the Gathering. I'm usually reading about that every day. I play it quite a lot. I'm usually like messing around with, like, it's like a sort of trading card strategy game, so I'm messing around with different card decks I can make and things like that. These bloggers I was following on Tumblr, they were talking about their experience as autistic people, kind of reading all these and thinking, like, I really related to it, and on quite a fundamental level there was a lot of stuff in common. So I did a bit more research on autism and the symptoms. I did the NHS's autistic spectrum quiz and scored quite highly on that. I went to my local GP to see about getting an assessment transferred to the York Autism and ADHD services. I went through it was three different assessments from 3 different people, so obviously separate opinions and everything like that. And yeah, I was diagnosed with autism.
Can I also just say, just to you, it's so strange hearing you speak for such long periods of time, because I'm so used to, like, having so much, like, silences, and I'm just like, I'm the one, like, trying to cut in now. I'm like, this is how Ben must feel all the time. Just actually when you were saying about how, like, distracting and playing Magic and things like that in Tumblr, it made me when I kind of we weren't dating, but the moment when we were in the lecture theatre.
Oh yeah, university.
Yeah, the realisation that we were very different students. Within the lecture theatre, we'd sit and I would be, like, full on listening to the lecture, getting really into it, just loving it. Because it was my favourite part of uni, and I remember looking down and Ben was on his computer and he was on Tumblr, and I was just like, who the fuck is this guy? Scrolling down on Tumblr. And when you're sitting with Ben, even now, like, even if we're on Skype together, he'll, like, be with me for, like, presence for a couple of seconds, and then he'll then kind of get distracted on Tumblr or something else, and so your distractedness is actually just from the very beginning.
I've always been like that ever since I was a kid.
Yeah, even, like, I read some of your school reports and it's like Ben needs to, like, yeah. Even just in relationship to our relationship, because obviously you are autistic, that is just how you are. I guess it made an impact on our relationship for me, on how I was communicating with you. Because obviously when you're flirting with someone, my way of flirting is kind of, you know, to be even more, you know, friendly and kind. But, you know, it's to kind of the eye contact and the slight body movements or gestures and just those really subtle things. And, like, Ben was, you know, that's just...
For me, it was just like, whoosh!
Yeah, and so, you know, you're trying to, like, really kind of show him. And also it was hard. I remember actually when we first started dating, like, actually Googling, like, how do you know if an autistic person likes you? I actually typed that in because it was so hard for me to read your body language, because sometimes I think with you, even if you're really into it, sometimes it can come off a bit indifferent, if that makes sense.
I'm not terribly expressive.
Yeah, and so, like, your facial expressions aren't always as kind of as, like, mine.
Yeah, or I get those weird days where I just forget how to smile.
Yeah, all the time. I was trying to take pictures of Ben because it's me, and if you follow my Instagram you'll know this, Ben's always on it. And there's this moment where Ben was just like... Ben was just like, I don't know how do I smile? Like, my face isn't working.
I just couldn't. I couldn't get it all the way up on something. Fuck.
That's going in.
Okay.
I'm keeping that that in.
Make the expression properly. Like, I just couldn't move the muscles right.
I remember, like, you just not looking at me and me trying so hard to get eye contact.
Yeah.
But knowing that that was difficult for you, and I totally did a full-on Google about autism and read as much as I could, because I was like, I really like this guy and I wanted to let him know that I really like him. But at the same time, I didn't know how comfortable you were with certain things like that. You know, I didn't know if you really didn't like it and you wouldn't want to. So why I kind of also wanted to make this video is because there is so much stuff around autism, because obviously it's a spectrum, so there's so many different types and everybody's different. I kind of wanted to raise maybe the stigma around it, or stuff that I came across, because having read about autism and then obviously being in a relationship with you, I've kind of learnt a lot about it, and I think I've unlearned like things as well.
I don't know, I think there's just a lot of stereotypes and stuff out there at the minute that are generally sort of, I think in like kind of media and pop culture and stuff, it always tends to be kind of generally uninformed, and there's always this this antisocial type who just is
loner.
Who's just a bit of a loner and kind of like
always a man as well.
Yeah, always a dude, always a white dude, slightly imperious, almost deliberately insensitive, kind of aloof genius type.
Some people do have really amazing special talents, or maybe geniuses. But then some people might not. Some people might have learning difficulties, some people might not.
I think because there are obviously cases of autistic people who have been incredibly intelligent.
A lot of famous people as well.
It can make things quite difficult, I think, for autistic people who might struggle with learning difficulties, or just be kind of like of average intelligence, of average IQ, but not have this amazing talent that people expect them to have. People need to move past the idea of autistic people naturally having some incredible talent, just because it does put unnecessary pressure on autistic people who might not have that talent and who might be struggling to kind of like live up to this uninformed expectation.
I think also it kind of is just another way of othering people as well, because either like, you have learning difficulties and that's seen as inferior and other, or you have these massive, you know, almost like not human kind of abilities, and it just either way it's just really damaging and just really problematic. Like,
as an autistic people, you've either got something that is useful to everyone, that is useful to society, or you're a burden.
Another thing I recently discovered was, what's it called?
Person first language.
And that is something I've been so guilty of. There have been so many things, I think, through dating that my brain has just kind of expanded. Because we're all problematic in so many ways, because society
Especially her.
Yeah, it's true. I'm problematic babe. You know? Thing where you can say, oh, Ben has autism, rather than Ben is autistic.
Yeah.
Because it kind of sounds like you have a disease, like Ben has, you know, the plague.
Yeah, it's sort of, I think disability advocacy groups call it like person first language, where you're like a person with X. And it's like, I don't know, it's like you wouldn't really say like,
Deaf person.
Yeah, like a deaf person, you wouldn't really say like, Dave has deafness. You just say Dave's deaf.
That's something that I've learned, that I now completely changed the way I talk about it. And it's just those little things, I think, that, I mean, I don't know where it comes from. Like, you're not ever trying to be insensitive. It's just, I think it's the kind of the attitude and the way, the narrative around autism or disability that is really problematic in this society, and therefore we just kind of pick up on it. But I'm really glad. Actually, that was also from Tumblr as well. Tumblr's a really great resource, actually, for this.
There's a lot of good disabled advocacy blogs on there. Yeah. You might well have heard of the charity that operates over in the States, Autism Speaks, who are also doing National Autism Awareness Month for April. Don't support them. They're terrible. They are awful people. They're pretty ableist. They have no actual autistic people on their board of directors, I believe. And the general way they treat autism is just not good. Also, they tend to pocket a lot of money that comes in from donations, which is a bit shady. So if you're American and you're wondering how you might be able to support autistic people, because I know we've talked about the National Autistic Society, but obviously that's only related to the UK. The Autism Self-Advocacy Network is pretty good. And also this month for April, for if you want to show support for autism or raise awareness or acceptance, Autism Acceptance Month is also a thing happening in the States. There is the Wear Red Instead movement, because Autism Speaks have taken the colour blue.
I also want to say a big thank you to Penguin, and especially Sana from Penguin Platform. I'm sure you all know Sana, Books and Quills, we all love her, for actually sending me this, because I asked for it. It's published by Penguin by Alan Lane, and it's called In a Different Key, The Story of Autism. There are so many good books on autism, and I'm actually going to put a little link to some of them as well. But I'm currently reading this and it's really interesting, so I think if you want to know more about autism, especially like the controversies over the vaccines and Autism Speaks, generally raise my awareness. So I'll put a link to this in the description as well. But I want to thank you for being in this video.
Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. And I also want to thank National Autistic Awareness, Society and their Awareness Week, because there's been a lot of good stuff on Twitter that I've been reading, and so their social media is just pretty great. Thank you for watching this video. I hope that it's been informative and enjoyable to watch, and hopefully I'll be back with Ben for another video shortly. From me, good night.
Good night. We need to zoom out now and like just have us talking silently, but we can't because we're on a little tripod and we don't have a guy operating the boom. So
No, we do. Steve. Hi, Steve.
Hey, Steve. Zoom out now.
Yeah.